This tool is used to provide an immediate validation check of a tenant's bank details, and this can be useful to ensure that there are no failures further down the line when either trying to pay a tenant for a refund or collecting payments from them. So starting out, we're in the Asperato Setup tab, which is used to connect Salesforce to payment gateways. This same tab is used if you're using Asperato to collect inbound payments or send outbound payments, where we have a number of gateway options. For this scenario of the Payee validation tool, we want to connect to the Payonomy confirmation gateway, as you can see here. To create a new connection, it's simply a case of selecting New PSP Connection, choosing the currency, and selecting Payonomy confirmation of Payee validation as the gateway and entering in your gateway details. To use the validation tool, you need to create an Asperato authorization record. In this demo, I've created a button to do this from the contact record so that all of the details such as the address and email information can be passed through onto that authorization record. Typically, bank details will be collected whilst on the phone to a tenant, so there'll be different types of screen flows which you may want to create to generate the authorization record, depending on what your user journey is. In my example, if I use the Create Authorization button, this will create the authorization, and you can see my beneficiary details have been pre-populated here from my contact record. To collect the bank information, you use the Process Authorization button, and this brings up the pay page. Again, this can be embedded into a ScreenFlow process if you want to create your own journey. The user will then enter the bank details from the tenant and select the Validate button. When Asperato verifies these bank details entered, it is checking the account name against the account number and the sort code. So looking at an authorization that has been validated, you can see we have the validation status information here. If there was a partial match, for example, if the name entered was Matt Smith, but the bank account is registered under Matthew Smith, then a message will pop up and the Salesforce user can accept it, or it can re-enter the details whilst on the call to the tenant. If the details are wrong, it will be a hard fail, and there will be a fail status here, and a reason will be given in the description box. In this example, we can see that it was a pass, and so the authorization has gone into the validation status pass and a status of in force. So at this point, you can then move on to the next process, knowing that these details are correct and they're ready to use. The use case that we're going to look at today is a new tenant filling out their housing application for a new property, and during that process they need to enter their bank information in order to set up their recurring direct debit rental payments. So here we are now in the tenants portal, and we're going to navigate to the Apply for Housing tab to start the application. This page here talks all through the process and also what sort of identification they're going to need in order to complete the application. This next page just asks various questions about the tenant. Here we have the payment frequency, and this is going to feed into the payment schedules, which we're going to have a look at later. And then we're also just filling in some information about the tenant, their reason for wanting to move, and their employment status. On this page here, the tenant can put in their address details, and then on the next screen is where they would upload their proof of identification. So we've embedded the pay page into this portal using an iframe so that it shows as part of the screen flow that the tenant is going through. The process here is that the tenant is entering their bank details once, and that payment method that they enter will be used both to take an initial payment of £125 for their tenancy deposit, and those same bank details are also going to be used to create a direct debit authorization, which is a saved payment method for taking recurring payments. So here I'm just going to enter in the bank details and then click to set that up and confirm my details are correct. What's happening now is these details are being sent through to the payment gateway. So in this example, we're using our partner GoCardless, who are verifying those details are correct and then setting up that direct debit with the tenant's bank. Once that's all been completed, we can click through to take us to the end of the application. Switching now, we're going to go into Salesforce, and as the Salesforce user, we can navigate to this tenant's contact record and see what's been set up against it. So here we can find various information about the tenant and about their application, but for now I'm just going to go into the direct debit tab and have a look at the authorization record that was created. So here we can see information that's been passed through from Salesforce, such as the contact's billing address details here. And if I scroll down, we can see these repeat payment tokens. With Asperato, we don't store tenants' sensitive payment information in Salesforce. Instead, our integration with the payment gateways will generate tokens for each payment method, and this is what we use to request future payments against. We can also see that some information has been entered about the outcome of this payment request. So we can see that this has been successful, and we can also see a mandate reference as well has been given for the direct debit. If this request had failed for any reason, we would get an error message here, and then we can follow up with the tenant based on that error information. Scrolling back up here and to the side, we can see the payment schedule has been created as part of that tenant's application process. This is based on the payment frequency here that they entered as part of the application, and what this record does is it will generate automatically future payments for this regular amount as per the frequency. And as it's associated with this authorization, which is the saved payment record, the future payments that are created will then automatically get pushed through to the payment gateway to be collected on their due date. This video is looking at how you can use Salesforce to automatically collect payments against a payment plan for arrears management by using Salesforce to manage your arrears process. So here we have a tenancy set up, and against this tenancy we can see tenancy arrears. So here this tenant is in arrears of £1,200, and so what we want to do is create an arrangement against that arrears in order to be paying off the debt. If I go into the tenancy arrangement tab, I'm going to select new. I'm going to associate this against the arrears. I'm going to set it as active, and then I'm going to set a start date and an end date that this tenant is going to pay off their arrears between. I'm then going to enter the amount that's being paid off and how many payments I want to split that amount into. When this record is saved, it will do a couple of things. If I go into the related tab, you can see it's created those 4 payments and it's split my total payment amount into even amounts. If I wanted to, I could go in and edit these amounts before I collect the payments. If, for example, the tenant wants to pay more upfront in the first payment and then amend the amount of the subsequent payments. For the Asperato piece, the integration, what's happened here is for each of these arrangement lines, so each of these amounts that need to be collected on a set due date, it has created an Asperato payment record. And this payment record is used to automatically collect against that payment via a payment gateway. If I go back into the arrears arrangements header information, you can see here it's created an authorization record. The Asperato authorization record is a saved payment method. So when this record has been created, we have a payment link that's been generated, and this can be sent out to the tenant. When they select that link, they are taken through to a pay page where they can put in their details and they can put in their bank account details as well, so that they can automatically take these payments against the arrears. What this does here is it takes those payment details and sends them through to a payment gateway. So in this example, we're using a payment gateway of GoCardless, who do automated direct debits, all through API, not file-based. So those bank details that were inputted by the tenant have been sent off to GoCardless. They are verifying that those details are correct, and they are setting up a direct debit mandate with that tenant's bank. If I go back into Salesforce and go into this authorization record and scroll down, you can see some information that we've got back from GoCardless from the payment gateway. So I can see that the status is pending. They're just verifying that those details are correct, and when it's been processed, it will go to a status of in force. If there were any issues setting up this direct debit, then I would get the error messages here. I also have a note of the mandate reference if I need it, and we also have these repeat tokens here. These repeat tokens is what Asperato uses to collect future payments against this saved payment method. So we don't store any tenants' sensitive bank details in Salesforce. Instead, we use a token generated by the gateway to send future payment requests. Going back to my tenancy arrears and into the related list again, you see for each one of the arrears arrangement lines, which is each of the individual requests for payment, I have a payment record created against it. This payment record is for the amount and for the due date that I've set on the arrangement lines, and if I scroll down, you'll see that it is attached to that authorization record, which is the saved payment record. So when this payment becomes due on its due date, the Asperato system will send it automatically through to the payment gateway, so in this case through to GoCardless, and using these tokens that are set on the authorization, it will automatically collect this payment amount against it. So going into the work order application, we have an outstanding work order here for an engineer to do some repair work. When the engineer is on site, they can come into their Salesforce on their tablet, set the work order status to be completed once the work has been done. On setting that status to completed, a payment record is created automatically, and this generates a payment QR code and a payment button. The payment QR code can be scanned with the customer's smartphone on site, or the Pay Now button can be emailed to their email address. When the customer receives the email or scans the QR code, they'll be taken in to the Asperato Pay page where they can enter in their payment details and make a payment. This payment is sent automatically through to the payment service provider, and the outcome will be shown immediately in Salesforce. So if we go back in and refresh the work order and scroll down, we can see the payment status has been updated to collected from customer.